Hello, I'm doing a book review, and the book I want to review is Red by Jack Ketchum. Now, Red was published in 1995. Now, Jack Ketchum, whose real name is actually Dallas Mayer, is the author of books like The Girl Next Door, Offspring, and Joyride, and he's primarily known for his horror novels, but this I would not call a horror novel. This one I would definitely call much more of a drama. Now, the plot of Red is it's about this old man named Avery Ludlow, who one day he's out fishing by the river and he has his dog Red with him, and what happens is these teenage boys come up to him and one of them has a gun and they're trying to rob him, so he tries to give them what they want, and out of an act of senseless cruelty, the boy with the gun ends up shooting and killing his dog Red. So what happens is he tries to seek justice for his dog, and he goes to the families of these boys, but the families don't do shit. Like, they're basically like, well, you can't prove it was them, and the families don't do anything, and throughout the book, he's trying to seek justice for his dog Red, and this ends up accumulating in a feud between him and not just these boys, but the families of these boys. Now, Red is an excellent novel. I highly recommend this book. Now, I've only read a few of Jack Ketchum's books. Like, I've read this, and I've read The Girl Next Door, and I've read Joyride, and I read a novella of his called Weed Species, and I've liked everything I've read from him so far, and I really don't know whether I like this or The Girl Next Door better, because they're both excellent books, but this is a phenomenal book, and I highly recommend it. And it's a relatively short book too, and depending on how quick of a reader you are, you might be able to get through this book in a day. Like, it is a relatively quick read. But this is just such a beautiful book, and such a devastating book as well. And this book will really, like, tug at your heartstrings, and it's a genuinely heartbreaking novel, because you feel so bad for the main character of this book, Avery Ludlow, because, like, he's such a sweet old man, and he's never done anything to hurt anybody, and when you find out his backstory, you realize that he had a very tragic life. Like, a lot of really tragic shit happened to him throughout his life, and he just doesn't deserve what's happening to him, and it is kind of a revenge story, but it's what I would call a more realistic revenge story, because he's not a vengeful old man, he just wants some kind of justice for his dog. He wants these boys to face some kind of repercussions for what they did, and to own up to what they did. That's all he wants. It's not like, this isn't like John Wick or something where he's going out to kill these boys. Like, he just wants them to own up to what they did, and you just feel so bad for him. Now, I'm not an animal person by any means. I mean, my family owns a dog, but when I start living on my own, I'm not gonna own an animal. They're just not for me. That being said, I still love my family's dog, and I would never do anything to hurt it, and I know people who are animal lovers who would probably be absolutely devastated by this book, and honestly, I know people who, in real life, if their dog was killed, probably would be out for that person's blood. I also feel like there's a lot of social commentary in this book, mainly about, like, class systems and how the rich kind of feel like they can get away with anything. For example, two of the boys who try to rob Avery Ludlow are actually brothers, and they're both from this very, very wealthy family, and you really do get the idea that the reason the boy who shot his dog thought he can get away with it was because, well, his father's rich, and the father knows very well what his kid did, but he doesn't care because he's so wealthy. Like, it's kind of like they kind of have that whole idea that they can get away with anything because they're rich. So there's kind of a rich versus the poor kind of commentary in the book. In this book, there's also kind of a commentary on the differences of generations, like the differences between Ludlow's generation and how he was brought up compared to the generation of kids growing up in the 90s, which is when this book was written. There's also kind of a commentary in this book on fatherhood as well. But yeah, Red by Jack Ketchum is an excellent novel, and if you haven't read this, I highly recommend it. It's a devastating book, it's an absolutely heartbreaking novel, and it's also a deeply moving story as well. Now, this book was made into a movie in 2008, and the movie is freaking excellent, and I actually think the movie is relatively true to the book. The movie starred Brian Cox as Ludlow. It also starred Tom Sizemore as the father of two of the boys who tried to rob Ludlow. Also, character actors like Robert Englund and Amanda Plummer, and even Ashley Lawrence from Hellraiser actually had small roles in the movie. But yeah, the movie Red is excellent, and I highly recommend the book, but I also highly recommend the movie as well. I think both the book and the movie Red are criminally underrated. Now, if you try tracking down the movie Red, try not to get it confused with the 2010 film Red with Bruce Willis and Morgan Freeman, which coincidentally also had Brian Cox in it as well. Try not to get it confused with that movie. Now, before I end this video, I want to show you a little short review that author Mark Allen Gunnels did for this book. I'm friends with this author named Mark Allen Gunnels, who I've reviewed a couple of his books in the past, and he's actually a big fan of this book, and I asked him to record a short review of this book that I could put at the end of this video. So if you enjoyed this review, check out my friend Mark Allen Gunnels' review of this novel.
Hello, my name is Mark Allen Gunnels. My friend Christian has asked me to do a short review on the Jack Ketchum novel Red, which is actually one of my favorite novels. So I was actually very pleased when he asked me to do a review for it. When I first read Red, the only book I had read by Jack Ketchum was The Girl Next Door, and it was a fabulous novel, almost painful to read. It was very disturbing. I was also hadn't read, but I was familiar with works of his like Offspring, which were ultra violent. So when I picked Red up, I actually thought it was going to be an ultra violent kind of revenge story, and I was quite surprised. Whereas the very extreme type horror Jack Ketchum does very well, here he did something a little more quiet. But I don't mean that in a way that means it's not powerful. There's a lot of power in this story, but it's a more intimate, personal tale of an older man, a widow, not much else in his life, and these nasty teens that kill his dog just for the fun of it. And like I said, I was almost expecting he was going to go and plot some extreme, extravagant revenge scenario. But instead, I got something quite different, quite unexpected, and like I said, no less powerful because of it. This book really impressed me. And actually, when I met Jack Ketchum at the World Horror Convention a few years ago, this was the book I brought to have him sign for me, because it is my favorite Jack Ketchum novel and one of my favorite novels, period. Because of the subtlety of it, because of the genuine emotion that's involved in it, characters that have depth and complexity, and not just the good guys. All the characters, I think, are multifaceted, and it makes it more interesting to read than just like saintly good guy and, you know, extreme cartoonish evil bad guy. Not that there aren't some bad guys in here that you will love to hate, but there are others that there's a little more going on to it. So I definitely recommend this book because, like I said, it is one of my favorites. It's a book that will keep you excited. You'll find it compelling, but I think it will also move you. So I definitely recommend Red.
So yeah, I hope you enjoyed my friend's take on this novel, and that was my review on Red by Jack Ketchum, and bye.